I believe that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be.
Well done. Come on.
I try.
I love having ringers come into the studio here and say that they're so nervous. No, you did well. You did great.
Thank you. I try sometimes.
Thanks so much for opening up the show that way.
No problem.
This is our deal. This is the construction life. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's the price, the admission to come into the show here is that you got to just do a little bit of karaoke.
Yeah.
Not even the whole song. It's not like maybe we'll get to a point where we'll have to do a whole video production or something.
Yeah, right. Depending.
Rebuild the whole 80s and get Whitney all that
I love
action,
it.
the outfits and everything. That maybe we'll get to that point.
Bust it out.
So Stephanie, welcome. I'm excited about this show because obviously it's always great to have a realtor on the show.
For sure.
And especially during these interesting days.
Yes, very interesting days to say the least.
So let me share out the deeds first. I'm wearing Huntington t-shirt. Thank you so much. I always give a shout out to anybody I'm wearing the t-shirt. So I also want to share everybody. So Stephanie De Souza is here. So Stephanie De Souza and Associates. Website is stephaniedesouza.com. Phone number is 647-330-5279. And it's her email is stephanie@stephaniedesouza.com. And then on IG, it's Stephanie De Souza Realtor with 2 R's at the end. And then on Facebook, it's Stephanie De Souza. Not on TikTok?
No.
No, not going to do with TikTok. How long have you been a realtor?
I've been in real estate for 17 years.
That's a big chunk of time.
Yeah, very long.
So you've seen it change. You've seen it climb.
Yes.
And what's it doing now?
So, yes, when I first started, that's actually just as it started climbing. Right now, I would say in today's day, it's more like stagnating.
Okay.
So last year we had a correction.
Okay.
So we saw some values drop, which we hadn't seen in like 2 decades, I would say. So last year we actually, to everyone's surprise, we did see it correct. But right now it's kind of just leveling off.
Who's at fault for the leveling? Is it as blatant as the bank rates, lending rates? Supply?
Supply has always been an issue, right? But it's actually directly correlated with the interest rates.
Okay.
So as soon as the interest rates started going up last year, we noticed it right away. The market started to soften.
How many times have it gone up this year already so far?
This year has been...
I thought it was like 4.
About 6 times this year.
6 times, and we're September still.
Yes, and we're in September.
By the time this airs, it'll be October. But I mean, it's just like, and so now we just saw it not go up.
Exactly. Last week on Wednesday. So September 6th, the Bank of Canada decided to keep it the same.
So
everyone was very relieved.
For now. I mean, are we not trying to figure out how we stimulated an economy here? Are we just continuously trying to slowly rip this Band-Aid off, taking our sweet time? Like I just feel that the Bank of Canada, which is being driven by other forces or whatever, is doing this on purpose because it's creating this downturn.
Yes, and a lot of people feel that way, right? A lot of people are perplexed because all of 2021, the market was absolutely insane. Even thinking back to it, we have like PTSD because it was so difficult to even get a buyer into a property. It was madness. We would have 15 minutes to see a property, and if you were late, tough luck. You're not going to see it because the next people are in there. It was so heated. So
surplus was just moving that quickly. They didn't care. They just, as long as they got their number that was above asking, whatever, just get out. We already sold it. Leave us alone, kind of thing.
Well, yes. Once it sells, yes. Then you don't want to have showings or any of that.
But they weren't even giving the people fair amount of time.
No, just because the demand was so high, it's in one day there would be 20 appointments. seller would be exhausted. They need to be making their beds. Some of them, a lot of people, families, when their properties for sale, they don't cook at home, so it doesn't have that strong, food smell.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, get takeout, and that gets tiring. They have to make their bed, their kids' bed. The kids can't throw, toys on the floor. So it's tough on some. It was tough on some families. So some of them would be like, "Sorry, after 20 appointments, we don't want anybody else seeing it. We need a break."
Now it's the complete opposite.
Now we're basically begging. Sometimes we have to beg, like, come see this
but
house.
Nobody's buying just because they won't get
financing
for it.
Yeah. So believe it or not, like the interest rates are the highest they've been in over a decade for sure. So we're not seeing those 2-3% rates, but there's still buyers. A lot of buyers in the market because people need real estate for so many different reasons, right? What we notice with markets like this is that there's just less of the speculators. It's just people that really need to move or, really need to buy or really need to sell.
So nobody's window shopping right now.
Nobody's window shopping. No, people are a lot more intentional. So now on average, when the market was at its height, which was 2021 and beginning of first quarter of 2022, on our listings, we would get an average of 100 appointments per week on one, house. But only about 20 to 30% of those people would actually be interested buyers and would come forth with offers, right? So if you look at it in a percentage, more people than not were just window shopping or speculating. Whereas now, on average for a listing, we get about 10 to 12 appointments per week. So it's gone down significantly. But about 80% of those bring offers, like they're serious. They're seriously looking to buy a home.
But aren't you getting two groups of people that are being pushed into a pickle because you're getting a lot of people that got 5-year mortgages at variable that are just being royally mashed up.
Yeah.
Because they know that in a year or 2 or 3 years, renewal time is coming and that interest rate is triple.
Yes.
And they won't be able to afford it. So then their alternative is literally to sell it. But now they're trying to sell it in a downturn market.
Yes.
So now they're probably going to lose value of their property. And then you're also getting all this force actions going on from the banks because I guess right now with our banking system, Canada in history, speaking wise, has never been in the red, banking wise.
Yes.
Historically, correct. Never been, right? But now there's a huge threat that they might actually go into the red because of a lot of defaulting. And it all starts with cars, leases, and overextending, and all these cars and people that should never purchased. But then they also bought the matching home at a variable. They believed their bank advisors, whether they knew or didn't know it, that this was going to go up. But not everything stays down low in this cushy. I remember my parents coming into this country in the 80s and having an interest rate of 16, 17%. Exactly. Yeah. But you're talking about a dwelling that was less than $100,000.
Precisely.
So we all know, this from the math of today. Any smart buyer would rather have a 16, 17% mortgage interest rate on a 100,000 valued home over a 2 or 3, but now it's 7 on a $1.5 million home.
Exactly.
The numbers only benefit the banks, but the big problem now is the defaulting that's going on. And we've heard our potential next prime minister talk a lot about how there is going to be this storm. So we might actually have this housing collapse where you're just going to have bankruptcy on top of bankruptcy, just bad debt on top of bad debt, and you're going to have people just get stuck into this rental, which is a whole other world now.
Yes, the rental industry is a whole other beast, yeah.
I recently looked at a property that I owned in the St. Clair Dufferin area.
Oh, yes.
I sold it in 2009, so before the craziness, right? And it was funny, just for, shits and giggles, I looked at, there was 3 units in the property, and I maintained the property, and I took care of it, upgraded it quite a bit because I know a thing or two about construction. And at the max on the larger unit, I was renting it out for $1,100, the max, and that was a 2-floor area. It was a good amount. I think it was about maybe 12 or 1,300 square feet on the 2 floors. And then the main floor was about 700 square feet, and I was renting that out for $750. And then the basement was like less than, I think it was maybe 500 square feet. And it was very short basement, but the tenant was there for the longest time and never bothered. And she was only paying $550 a month.
Wow.
So then I just checked it out to see what it is currently renting out for. So that top unit is renting out for almost $3,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
The main floor is renting out for $1,800. And then the basement's renting out for $900.
Wow.
So almost everything is doubled,
Yes.
rent-wise, for that same dwelling in that area there.
Yeah,
Which
at minimum.
At
doubled.
minimum. And I'm sure that they're probably trying to maybe get rid of these people to try to get more.
Exactly.
And then there's that whole world. So there's so much going on in the real estate market, which is making it more difficult for you guys, because now you got people who either, I guess, won't qualify. You're asking for more money. Nobody, like the running joke is that you need 25 years just to get your down payment, when back in the day it would be 25 years to pay off your mortgage.
Yes, that's true.
So how do we correct this? Or is this just a matter of like, we just have to weather this, Stephanie, and just survive it?
Yes. Those are actually really great topics. And it's a question that we get asked at least, on a daily basis, right? So basically, every market is cyclical, right? Whether it's real estate or, anything, really, it's cyclical. So there's a time to buy, there's a time to sell, and there's also a time to do nothing. There's some clients, basically our job is to advise people and look after their interests. So the minute someone's your client, you have to give them advice. Yeah. And the advice you're giving them is based on the outcome they're looking for. And everyone has a different, looking to do different things. So for example, in these types of markets, if it's a buyer that's looking to buy and sell, it doesn't really matter because they're doing a trade. So if they're selling high, they're buying high. If they're selling lower, they're also buying lower. Yep. They're just doing a trade. So, timing is not as crucial. Now, if it's someone that's just looking to sell an asset, the first question we ask people is, do you need to sell now or can you wait 1 to 2 years?
Because selling now, you're not going to get the full value of what it is.
You may not. Yeah.
Most likely.
And why? Because affordability has gone down 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. So, and this is something we explain to a lot of sellers too, right? Because some sellers are like, oh, but why can't I get the same price, that my neighbor got, January of last year. And it's like, well, it was a heavily inflated market and they were getting interest rates of 2%. We actually saw some clients get less than 1% interest rates if they had really good credit.
Wow. So
we had this couple, they were both engineers, and we saw them get an interest rate of 0.0, just under 1%, I believe it was at the time. Yeah.
On a variable?
On a variable.
Okay.
But that is crazy,
rare.
Right? And obviously their qualification, they were qualified for a lot more because they were able to lock in such a low rate. Now, that same buyer with an interest rate now at 6, close to 7, affordability looks very different. Now their approval, they were qualified at the time for 1.2. Now it's looking more like 750. So you see that difference in affordability.
So how is there such a dramatic change on the qualifications here? How is it that someone a year ago was able to be secured for 1.2, but now today that same person, job is still the same, money is still the same, everything's the same. The only thing is different, I guess, is just inflation and economy and bank rates. Yeah. And you're almost cutting their qualifications in half.
Exactly. Yes. And that's a real challenge, right? That's all due to the several interest rate increases, right? All of 2021, we were begging. Like we kept saying, we're like, oh, no, these interest rates, they have to go down. They have to go up just a little bit just to kind of cool it. It's crazy. We would have to put 10 to 12 offers, for one buyer in order to get one house. So they would offer, be like, sorry, someone offered more than you. Sorry, you didn't get it. Back to the drawing board. Sorry, you got outbidded again. And you're there negotiating for multiple hours. Sometimes you're there negotiating for 4 to 5 hours on a Friday night. And then you get no, sorry, someone offered more than you. And so we were all saying, we need some relief. We need some relief because a lot of the locals are having problems buying, right? The investors, whoever's coming in heavy with cash, local, everyday blue collar people can't compete with that.
Yeah.
So, it's like you leave your house, to work, you're 9 to 5, your house is making more money than you are. Right. And it's, with appreciations like that, it wasn't making sense. So we're like, we need at least 1 or 2 increases here. Took a little bit long for it to come in. And then when it came in, it was like guns a-blazing. Like now from March, from the very first increase to today, it's been 13 interest rate increases. So
It's
we're
too
like,
extreme.
we're like, how about you slow down a little bit? Like, I think it's good now. I think you've cooled it.
So why do they continue? Well, I guess they got to do that because some idiots decided to print money.
Exactly. And that's a problem, right? You can't just print money. It needs to be backed by something. That's how you cause hyperinflation.
So you meet in a 20-year span, you've met so many different people purchasing the biggest purchase of their life, right?
Yes.
Whether they're couples, single, whatever it is, all kinds of people, immigrants, locals.
Yeah.
All kinds of stories, right? Why is it that human nature dictates that we have to keep up with the Joneses and someone buys a property and then they live in there, build a family for a certain amount of time, almost most likely single year time. Yes. So 5 years or whatever. Then they go, you know what? We've got lots of equity in this house now. We're going to buy another property. And then they buy a bigger property. It costs more money. So they're not actually improving their financial balance sheet at that point. So why is it that human nature dictates that we keep up with the Joneses and we keep on wanting to buy on top of, and then we get into this situation now that they can't carry that. And if they would have stayed on that first property that was just good size for the family, because we know factually speaking that families are not larger than 2 people or 2 kids, maybe 3 kids at the most of that, right? Yes, yeah. And so it's not necessarily for space, it's more about just ego and showing off to your neighbors.
Very much
Why
so.
are these people doing this? And this is, I revert back to, and this has been brought up on the show before, where what happened in the US in 2008 is going to destroy Canada now.
It could be. I still don't think it will be as bad as in the States, because I remember when that happened in the States, they had financing programs like NINA, which means no income, no assets. So, someone would just open a business, Juan's Landscaping, go to the bank, be like, hey, I want to get a mortgage. And they would just get a mortgage for, 10 properties, no problem. And they would give people cash back.
Yeah.
That has never really been a thing here. I remember cash back was popular not popular, but it was offered here when I first started selling real estate. And then in 2010, all of that was cut, like no cash back. People used to be able to buy with 0% down here.
Yeah.
That stopped. Yeah, like 13 years ago it stopped, right? However, so Canada, the lending has always been conservative.
Protective.
Banks, yes. I definitely don't think what happened in the States will happen here, just because we are way more conservative and we're not giving people, just random, if you don't have, assets or income, no worries, you can have a mortgage. No, here, if you want a mortgage here, you need to have income. You need to have good credit.
When I say that, I think that part of what I'm going to say is that, and I go back to the other part of my thought process, is that you had so many younger people buying properties that they had no business buying.
Yeah.
And just because they're divorced parents and they were able to go to 2 large pools of money for a deposit,
that makes sense.
That you were qualified to buy that property. And as much as I used to love downtown Toronto, and all these idiot young morons were buying properties that were way too expensive for their financial bracket or mindset, they're going to get stuck. Because unless their parents are getting another divorce and they can get another pool of money from them, which is not going to happen, because on the other flip side of that situation is that people are living longer.
Yes, much
so
longer.
These parents are going to start to really realize we don't have enough to retire, to survive retire.
And we see that. Some of our clients are elderly. They're in their 70s and 80s. And right now we're currently dealing with 2 clients like that. There's one we just successfully closed their transaction right on Monday of this week, and they became mortgage free, right, at 70. Whereas people back in the day, they were becoming mortgage free in their 50s. So
they're
it's
mortgage
taking longer.
free in their 70s, but can they survive the next 20 years? Because technically
That's where it's
speaking, that's what they need to be doing.
Exactly.
So you have to figure out how much money you need as a couple or whatever. Most likely he's going to go first before her, just statistically.
Statistically, no, it's true.
I'm not wishing it or anything. I'm just saying that right now, if you get to that age bracket, a woman is living to their late 80s, men are living to their mid to early 80s, right?
Yes.
So they have to still survive anywhere from 15 to 20 years, financially speaking.
That's correct.
So mortgage free, great, but you still have the property taxes, you still have utility expenses, you still have your own food, and if you've got a car, insurance, home insurance, you still have expenses, and then you've got to just live day to day.
Yes, and not enough people think about that.
They're
Not
not
enough
thinking.
people think of the future.
And
Unfortunately,
like you said, back in the day it was 50s, and that was a different story. So my problem is that these parents gave a lot of their nest egg over to these stupid children of theirs to buy properties that they should never, like they should have went to you for an approval, but they should have went to their parents for a life approval. You know what I'm saying?
So true.
Like this is stupid.
none of this is taught in school.
You
right?
can't buy in Leslieville. You can't buy in Queen West. You can't buy in Little Italy. Just stop looking at these places right now. But then they don't want to be in condos. But then we're also seeing condos are slightly in trouble now because they're slowing down the progress of building pre-con because you tell me there's lots of inventory right now that is more competitive than a new pre-con in 4 or 5 years.
100%.
So you can't move forward on that.
Builders started to get a little bit greedy, though.
They are getting greedy, but then when you break it all down, it's that greediness is coming from government because of their greediness. But
Of course.
the builders fed that greediness. Like it's no different than you were walking down the street and then the local mobster said, you have to pay me
Right.
if you want to build here. So
Right.
they've been paying the government.
No, of course, there's so many taxes.
So
on
now
them.
I've allocated so much money to build this building. That means each unit's going to cost this,
Yes.
which means that I have to sell it for that, which means that I can't compete with what's already in
Right.
inventory.
The resale. Yeah, that's right.
So it means I'm going to put a full stop on this build.
That's right. And that is something that we've seen a little bit of. It's still holding up pretty well. There's still a lot of pre-construction that they are selling out, but they're taking longer to sell out.
Yeah.
Some of them would sell out in first phase. Now they're kind of like at 50% on the first phase.
Do you
know?
focus, Stephanie, more on high rise or you do all kinds?
We do all kinds of residential real estate.
Residential, yeah,
Yes,
that's
yeah.
right. Okay, yeah, because it's different markets if it's commercial, residential.
Exactly.
But you're dealing with
Two completely different,
high
yeah.
rise, and you're doing dwellings as well, single family or whatever dwellings, right?
Yeah, we call those freehold properties. Freehold is just a normal house without a condo fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And now, I guess my problem is that these young people that are somewhat smart, that don't overbuy into these neighborhoods, and they decide to go with a condo, their biggest gripe, which happens really quickly, it's not enough space, and the maintenance fees are astronomical.
Some of
And
them,
then the
yeah.
mortgage payments are going to be astronomical because they're going to be variable, what have you. And then they're going to be like, we have to get out of here because we're going to kill each other if we stay here because we have a 1-bedroom plus den.
Right.
And you just got pregnant, which is
right.
our problem, not your problem.
Of course.
Right? So you guys both, as far as I know from biology,
It takes
took
two.
right?
Still taking two, yeah.
Still taking 2. So it's just like they're going to get antsy about not wanting to stay in the high rise, but they can't afford. So then the alternative is you rent, and then the rent is just ridiculous. Like I saw that story. It was all making it all over social media where that one landlord just hiked up the rent on a uncontrolled rent
Exactly.
to
Anything built after
$9,000 just to
2018.
kick the person out.
Yes.
And I'm
That's
like,
unfair.
Why are these rules like not being? Why are we not protecting the tenants at this point? Why are we letting this gong show happen?
Honestly, things like that usually happen, crazy rules, because not enough people speak up. There's not enough interest. So that's the problem. So then a lot of these bylaws get passed just simply because no one's there. You know, people are busy looking at Kim Kardashian on Instagram. They're looking at, what Drake's doing, Kim is doing, but they're not really paying attention to what's happening in their own life.
Escapism, right?
Yeah, because it's easier to cope, right? When you're paying attention to other people's lives, you don't have to pay attention to yours, right? But then that's how we get into problems like this.
So you're helping these people get their mortgage. So
Well, we help them. We help them find their homes and sell their homes, right? Getting the mortgage. We have a lot of partners that are mortgage brokers. Yes, we work directly, as partners. To close one real estate transaction, it involves several professionals, a minimum of 5 professionals, and we all work together as a team to get one transaction. So it involves so many professionals, it's great. That's something I actually really like about real estate. Through one transaction, you can employ so many different people, right? And help so many people. And so just in one, like the most important one I would say is the mortgage broker, because without lending, without an approval, nothing can be done. You don't have a buyer if they're not qualified, right?
So here's my question. I think the stat that I read recently was that the average person needs to be making well over $200,000 a year just to qualify.
Yes.
To buy an average home in Toronto nowadays is what? 1.1, 1.2?
Yes.
Average home?
Yes. Like an average home, 3-bedroom home.
Yes.
It's about $1 million still. Yeah.
So to qualify, they need to be made.
$230K.
One person needs to be, or you have a dual income to qualify to get that.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to these people. So you're getting into their nitty gritty of what they do job wise. In my assumption, just me being in my 50s, right? My assumption is like, there's no way this group of people are making that much money in their jobs.
That's correct.
Unless you've got a city of OnlyFans people, but that's not the case,
No.
right? So I think it's a small percentage of people that are making a lot of money on social media and being influencers or doing all that kind of crap. I think the majority of people have regular jobs that are going into businesses that are probably streamlining their businesses as well, where they're like, okay, are you really worth 70, 80K? But even at 70, 80K, you're not qualifying. So are these people making this much money? Are they actually hitting these numbers?
Well, it's actually very funny you say that. In the beginning of my real estate career, I would, sometimes single guys or single gals would come to my office and I could put them in a home. But in the last, I would say 7 to 8 years, that started to change, and it changes slowly, so you don't even notice it. But today, like all of our clients there's 2 incomes. There's no such thing as one income, one income households anymore. Both have to be working, right?
So you're being forced, you have to partner up with somebody
You have
else.
to partner up, yes.
That's the only way you can qualify.
Yes, because the average, it's like people that make over 300K, that's just like 1% of the population, So it's like there aren't like a high percentage of people making, $250,000, $500,000 a year. That doesn't exist, right? Like in as a majority. So what happens is, let's say you're a couple, you're buying, one partner makes 100K, the other partner makes 100K. Now you have 200K income. Now you can afford something better.
Are they doing something stupid like getting the parents to co-sign?
You know what? We do have that's a lot of the first time buyers. Yeah. A lot of the first time buyers are getting assistance from, bank of mom and dad.
Okay.
Yes, a lot. But for a lot of them, they actually just want a place to live. Like it's a residence. They're not looking to invest. They want to stop paying rent because the rents are so high, right? We have a lot of people call us and they're like, honestly, I was looking to rent and then I started seeing the rent prices and I'm like, why don't I just buy? It's kind of painful, paying $3,500 for a condo per month. So maybe I should look into buying. And then, mom and dad, depending on your cultural background, your parents, they put aside some money to help you either, with an education or housing.
Yeah.
In our culture, it's very different. We have to help our parents, right? It's the opposite. But
what's your background?
Portuguese, Brazilian.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
Fala português?
Yes, sim, falo. I thought you might be Portuguese from your last name, Neves.
I'm in construction.
Yeah, and in construction, yes. A lot of our clients are construction workers. Okay. Very common. So
all
yes.
Right.
So
as contractors, we know safety is crucial at all times, but having team members not follow or even worse, not know safety protocols is something that can cause stress and anxiety in the workplace. We face this and many other challenges daily, from calling the entire team just to make sure jobs are done in a safe manner, to updating team members one by one about training they need to complete regarding a certain tool or a new regulation, only to figure out who has or hasn't completed the training and document everything in messy folders. We deal with a lot, but Connecteam is here to help us out. Connecteam is a platform built for managers with a lot of different capabilities made to ease communications and operations, helping you get a clear and live overview of your business while giving your employees one central and simple app for work. Connecteam has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
So you know how it is. Your Portuguese parents didn't save a down payment for you. You had to hustle and make that down payment.
Mindset.
It's a completely different mindset. Our parents are just waiting for us to provide for them in their old age, right? So, but we noticed that depending on the culture or, depending, some parents will be like, no, I've already put aside money to help. And we're like, wow, that's awesome. It's a great head start. So some, they do use Bank of Mom and Dad.
What do you think, Stephanie, what do you think is going to happen?
So what I think will happen
in the next 5 years, what do you think is going to happen?
In the next 5 years, I think first, I think everything will be fine. That's the first thing. I think we'll be fine. As humans, we're very resilient and we adjust. We adjust to changes. Look what we did for 2 years. Everyone was like for 10 months locked up in their homes, and we adjust quickly. We go back to things, we are pretty resilient, I would say. But I think that what we'll notice is just things kind of level off a little bit more. We'll notice that, eventually the incomes will start catching up, but that will take, it'll take a little bit longer, but we'll start to see things kind of just calm down a bit. Because the thing about Toronto and GTA is it was overlooked for a very long time. Whenever I'm looking at history, because I often have to look at history of real estate, when I'm giving people valuations and things of that nature, the Toronto real estate market from 2000 to 2010 was literally like nothing was happening. The price you would pay for a home in 2000 was the price you were paying in 2010. Yeah. There was zero appreciation. So it's like you weren't paying rent, so you were paying down an asset, but there was no appreciations. It was just the average 3 to 5% a year at most.
That St. Clair Dufferin property, I think it was 218 purchased and it was sold for 403.
There you go.
Over a 9-year period.
And that was a pretty
But that was right
for that time.
Yeah, that was normal land.
That was normal.
And then it became crazy right after that.
Yeah. And then it all kind of like started mainly in the beginning of my career. It started to climb. And after 2010, it seems like everyone woke up to Toronto. Like everyone all of a sudden.
You think it was influenced by the U.S. because they were losing their shit in 2008, and then all of a sudden ours started going through the roof.
Exactly. That's when it started climbing, right? We didn't even have
No, it never.
2008
Stephen Harper,
here?
No, he avoided all that because he kept it very restrictive about who was going to get approved. And so you couldn't buy a property.
Yes.
So the problem is that what happened in the last 7 years is that everybody, it was almost Oprah. Like, you want a car, you want a car, you want a car. Yes. Everybody gets a car. Everybody gets a loan. Everybody gets everything, but it has to be variable.
Yes.
And then now everyone's like really, really scared, right? So, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to hear you say that in 5 years it's going to be okay, because in construction, I think a lot of tradespeople are losing their shirts. They're trying to downsize.
Well, that's one of the first signs, right? When you see construction slowing down, start to notice,
I've always said construction and retail.
Built. And retail, yes.
And retail took a massive hit during the funny years recently. Construction didn't, right? But what I always argued on the show was that construction didn't because everybody was going loony at home, and they realized that their home wasn't something that I call about breathing. Nobody was paying attention to the breathing of their home. Then they quickly were sitting at home all the time, realizing our home is not really a home.
Exactly.
So we don't want to buy another property, but we're going to renovate our property.
Yes.
But now we're at we're at the crest of the wave of clients screwing over contractors, because we're allowing them to screw us over because they can't screw over the banks, because banks hold their asset.
Yes.
We're not holding their assets. So
that's
we have to fight for our money. So that's what I'm saying, is that the contractors are losing. So if you start losing construction, which we are starting to see that, it's going to be a tough, mean next 5 years.
It could be for sure. That's the thing, right? It's hard to speculation, and there's so many different opinions on it. But what I find is that the most important thing is to actually do the opposite of what most people do, which is, keeping up with the Joneses. Everybody, during 2021 was buying, willy-nilly because everyone else was doing it. But they had no clue what they were really buying. They wouldn't even look into it, really. They're like, let's just buy because everyone's doing it. So I think that as long as people are actually paying attention, Because right now there's tons of good deals right now.
Okay.
There's so many good deals.
Good deals for who? For regular Joe homeowner?
For buying, yeah, for people that are buying.
Okay.
Yes. But what happens, it's good deals don't come out every day. They don't come out, multiple great opportunities every day. It's you have to be patient and you have to be looking. A lot of people have so much anxiety. Sometimes we're representing buyers. We're 1 week into the buying process and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is getting so frustrating." And it's like you literally just started looking. Like,
is it just
what's
like,
the rush?
Just like they have no patience.
They have no patience. And it's like, well, that's not a good deal. That property is not a good deal. Why? Because it's overpriced. Seller needs to lower that price, right? They're like, "Oh, okay, but okay, so let's go on to." And after they're like, "Oh man, like, okay, I just want to offer on this one." Okay, you can offer on it for sure, but it's not a good price. You're going to be paying over market value. They're like, "I know, but I'm so tired of looking." It's like, well, do you want to rush into things and have issues later, or do you want to just take a little bit more time and get the good deal? Because there's many times where we're representing a buyer, properties listed, let's say at $1 million. We analyze it, we evaluate the property. It's like, nope, this property is worth maximum 850 to 9 on a good day.
Okay.
So then, buyers like, "Oh, okay, so what should we do?" We're like, offer what it's worth. "Oh, but that's like 150K below asking." That's nice. Offer 150K below asking.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, okay." It's like, but what if the seller says no? Well, if the seller says no, you move on.
That's it. Simple as that.
You have a choice. You don't have to buy that property.
Are there still madness of bidding going on right now? That's not happening.
No, it happens. Let's say like 2021, beginning of last year, it would happen, like 9 out of 10 times. Okay. Now we're seeing it happen maybe 2 to 3 times out of 10. So we still see multiple, like we still see things sell over asking, but way less.
Are you going to get multi-level ownership? Is that going to be a thing coming in here where these?
I think it is because of the rent prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now those are starting to make more sense because in the last decade, a lot of those like triplexes, rental properties, they were selling super high, but the rents hadn't quite catched up yet.
Yeah.
So they hadn't caught up. So what would happen is someone would want to buy a rental property, but they wouldn't even when we talk about investment properties for rental purposes, we want to look at least a cap rate of 5%, like a rate of return, right? Okay. Anyone that's investing, you're investing to make money, right?
Yes.
Some people are okay with it just paying itself off because that's a retirement fund. That's actually how I started buying real estate. I started buying real estate very young, and my thinking was always like, I don't want to make revenue off of it. I just wanted to pay itself off because then when, I'm 60, when I'm 50, 60, I have property paid in cash, right? And then that's income. That's all going to be income.
Are banks still interested in that?
Banks are still interested in that. Yes,
okay.
They are. And the thing is, now that the prices have adjusted, rents have increased tremendously. Now they're starting to make sense again. Now you can actually get cap rates of 5 or even higher. So that's a market that's becoming very interesting.
What's the maximum again? Someone told me this before on the show, but how many people can go on title of one single property? Like you can do a multi-level. What is it, 4?
Yes. Generally, it's like there's no clear-cut like rule, but generally about 4.
So you can get 4 individuals. If it's 4 friends, whatever, they're co-owning this property, and
yes.
then they would take a certain floor. And with the new rules in construction here with the OBC and everything like that, you can actually divide up the unit to create those 3 dwellings, and then probably a backyard, 90s garden suite or wherever it is.
Yes.
So then now you got 4 people living in it, and they own it.
Yes.
Together, and that's basically the alternative to the high rent rates right now.
Yes, that is the alternative. But rents have gone up everywhere, like in every type of property. I think just not commercial, maybe.
Well, because commercial took such a massive hit during COVID,
Precisely.
right? Yeah. So there's no value. I know so many people have commercial properties that are just
that got really
empty.
hurt. Yeah,
they're just empty,
that industry got hurt. I was a bit worried about that industry.
And now I guess the new rules, now you've got a lot of businesses, big corporations that are forcing people to return to work.
Exactly.
And if they don't, because everyone got nice and cushy staying at home, right?
Yeah, too comfortable.
But that's how, so you got to go with the times at that point, right?
You have to go with the times. And that's very important. Investing is all about the time you're in, right? Because we hear a lot of people say like, oh, back in the day, I paid this. It's like, okay, but back when? Because it changes. The world changes. Everything changes. Information becomes obsolete after 18 months. Like, even if what you learned in university no longer applies. It's information always changes. That's why you have to keep up.
So my biggest problem with is if you compare, lots of people compare this stuff on social media, right? Where they start comparing what a car was back then, what an average income was back then, and then what the price of a home was back then compared to now.
Exactly.
And the car and the home are dramatically higher today than the actual income. The income hasn't gone up the same way that these other items have gone up, right? So that's why you get a lot of people, whether you believe they're conspiracy theorists or all kinds of crap, saying that we're in a silent depression right now, right?
I believe that, though.
We've heard this term, right?
Yeah.
It's come up, and I've been saying this for 2.5, almost 3 years now, that a depression was happening. If you look at just history-wise, you go back, what was costing then and what they were making then, and you compare it to today, yeah, we are in a depression.
Yeah.
But people
100%.
are still trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to, like, I'm confused on how certain businesses in Toronto can sell a $9 croissant.
And we say the same. And my partner,
and these idiots, and I'm saying, I've tried it. Give me a $2 croissant, right?
Seriously.
And I don't get how these people can afford a $9 croissant and then a $5 latte or whatever stupid goat milk, ant milk, all that shit attached to it.
Avocado toast.
I don't get it, right? So it's like, if you're keeping up with the Joneses that way, and then you're like, what is it? Are they literally going to be sitting in their home that has no furnishings whatsoever while they're just hanging on to it until the very last day that they're being asked to get out of it because it's no longer your property?
Priorities, right? I find that people's priorities a lot of the time is in the wrong place. And I never like to blame social media, because social media is a great tool. You can, for many great things. Anything. But at the same time, the problem with the social media era is that people post pictures, they're in their car,
we're making so much money and we're completely so happy. Money.
Yeah, if you're that happy, why are you having to show it to us? Right? But no one really thinks like that, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of those people that are on social media, and this I can say from personal experience, of many people, clients, people we know, it's the people that have to show their things on social media, they're actually the least happy. That's why they need validation, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I think that people have so much pressure, like the status quo, and, you see people's photos on Instagram, you're like, I need to look perfect. Because of course they're not going to show their blemishes. They're not going to show their cellulite, or they're not going to show their crow's feet, or all of that gets filtered, right? The world, it's a lot of smoky mirrors.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of people say they're making a lot of money on social media, but they're not really. It's like a lot of smoky mirrors. They're not really making real money. A lot of these people.
That's what I keep on going back to. You see what their financials are like, and I'm like, okay, back in my day with my parents, if you were making $100,000 a year, you were very well off. Right? Like back in my day, in my 20s, you would be lucky to make $30,000-$35,000 a year, and you're surviving that. And I was driving around in a pickup truck that cost me $3,000 used.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just how it was.
Yeah.
But now these people are getting $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 leases for vehicles, living in $1.2, $1.5 million homes.
Yeah, with very high mortgages on them.
So it's
no equity.
Yeah, no equity whatsoever. And then okay, so I know that when I started paying attention to the whole, and I'm old enough to know Sky Dome. It's not the Rogers Center to me, right? So I don't give a shit.
Yeah, we always say Sky Dome.
It's Sky Dome, right? Yeah. So I'm old enough to watch those towers grow, and I'm old enough to chirp to say that City Place was a stupid idea, because you cannot build that many towers coming off of one exit, off of one thoroughway.
Thank you. Something
right?
wrong
So
with the city planning.
And if I was out civilian, and I've said this share before, I'd drill a tunnel underneath where the Gardner is, from the 427 to the DVP. So anybody who wants to go to the east and wants to go to the west bypasses the whole mess that's called the Toronto core.
Right.
But they'll never do that, because all the island people will be upset by all the rumbling going on through the waters, right? And I'm like, listen, start a wave pool at that point. I don't give a shit, right?
Yeah, do something. The city's growing.
I'm watching all these towers go up, and I'm like, who's moving into these things?
We wonder the same.
So they started talking about, well, all the young professionals that want to be in the core downtown working. Well, when they get tired of those places in about 5 years and they want to upgrade because somebody got pregnant or they've got a dog or whatever it is, right? Then who's going to start moving into these places? Well, the elderly, when they're retiring, they're going to be empty nesters, so they're going to want to downsize and go there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. None of that's happening.
No, elderly don't like to be downtown. They like to be in condos, but not downtown.
No.
They want nothing to
They
do with
want
downtown.
nothing to do with it, right? So, but now I have a problem with, you know this, right? Like Yorkdale has their 20 plus towers being built right now. Sherway just announced their 20 plus towers being built right now.
Yeah.
Square One's planning the exact same thing now. So you're getting all these massive towers being built. And I get it that 100,000 people are coming into this country every month and there's only 40,000 new jobs every month.
Right.
But then these 100,000 people can't afford to even get a mortgage approval to get that 500 square foot condo, but they're coming with a family.
Yes.
So it's like, talk about a square hole, round peg, whatever it is, talk about like it doesn't work. It doesn't fit.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't make any sense. So it's just like, it creates this chaos. That's what's going to happen. So we're still building.
And a lot of depression, like you were saying.
It does. It's going to happen
Makes
that way.
people feel inadequate. But there's nothing wrong with people. It's not that there's something wrong with you.
So what should the person be doing right now? I'd love to get your opinion about, okay, so realistically now people are not moving out in their 20s. They can't afford it.
Nope.
Right?
Some not even in their 30s.
So what are they looking at? Their mid to late 30s before they're looking at getting their first property? Now, when they're looking at their first property, what should they be looking at?
So when a buyer's looking into their first property, we always tell a first-time buyers right off the bat, you're not going to buy your dream home on the first one. Your first home is your stepping stone to your dream home. Yep. So the thing is, a lot of times people want instant gratification. They want what they want right away.
Yeah.
But you actually have to work towards it. Like the first property I ever bought, oh Lord, when I think back, I'm like, wow, what a crappy house. But that crappy house it was a stepping stone for me to buy, the properties I have today. Yeah. Because what happens is, us as humans, we're inefficient with money. We have needs. We want to spend money. We see shiny things. We want to buy them. Your property saves money a lot faster than you do. So what happens is you buy a property, 2-3 years, you wait a few years, it builds equity, it saves money. You sell that, you use that equity to buy your second home, right? Much easier to have 200-300K in your property than for you to have it in your bank account, right?
But people today are not doing that. They're not thinking that. They're
not thinking that because they want the instant results. Yeah. The ones that do that, the ones that realize like, oh, okay, you know what? I got to buy something because I got to get in the market because the market outpaces my ability to save. Market appreciates much faster than I'm able to save. So let me pick something up at a good price. They end up not buying, and then they fall under that trap of renting and paying someone else's mortgage for decades upon decades, and then they never end up picking anything up. And we see all sorts of people. We deal with all sorts of people, and then the clients that we do see do that, where they're like, okay, I get the vision, I get the plan, let me go for it. Sure enough, 2 to 3 years, they're calling us, and they're like, hey, what's like my condo worth? Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? We look at the numbers. We say, yep, if it's no, it's no. We say, just wait a little bit longer. I'll let you know when it's a good time. We always advise our clients like that. And then, if it is a good time, we sell it. They pocket 300K, 400K, whatever it is. And then we help them find their dream home. Just that we do all of the numbers ahead of time, right? Of course, because you never want to list your property and then find out you can't afford what you're looking for. Of course, yeah. So we do all of that preliminary work ahead of time. If all the numbers, make sense, everything checks out, then we move forward. However, had they not bought that property 2 to 3 years prior, they wouldn't have the ability to buy that home, the bigger home.
But the majority of the market did buy that property. The majority of the market told each other, whether it was a dual income situation, we need to get out of here and get to our dream home, closer to a dream home.
Yes, and the ones with equity are doing well, and they'll continue to do well, even if the market does have a massive downturn, because there's equity there. Now the ones that bought the $1.2 million houses as a first-time buyer giving 5% down, I worry for them. Because there's no equity in their property. What they owe is more than what it's worth. Yeah. And that's called a short sale. That's a problem because banks, mortgages can call back your mortgage if you owe more than it's actually worth.
And they've been doing that.
Yeah. They're starting, yeah.
Yeah, which is a
starting to
scary
see that.
time now because now you can just get a phone call because they're nervous.
Of course.
It might actually, I mean, I don't fault it. It might actually be a good thing that the banks of Canada actually go into the red for the first time in history.
You know what? I agree. Sometimes in order for us to learn, we have to go through a little bit of pain. And it's fine. It's not everything in life has to be lovely and wonderful. It's okay to go through hardship. It's called just being a human.
Yeah.
Right? I find that, you know, there's never been another generation there's never been a better time to be alive. We have everything we need. We live like kings and queens when you compare, you know, lifestyle 200 years ago. We live better than kings and queens back then, right? And at the same time, we've never been more entitled and more like sucky about things. It's like if we don't wake up and people are smiling at us or being nice, it's like, oh, you know, that person looked at me sideways. That's okay. They don't have to smile at you. They don't owe you anything. It's like, you know, things don't have to go your way every time. It's okay.
I don't understand this world today. I just know that there's a large majority of tradespeople out there who would love to be living 100 years ago because we would all survive.
Yeah, right? With a lot less.
We would all survive.
And be much happier
and be
too.
much happier, yes.
Yes.
And date the one woman.
Date the one woman, the one man. You don't need multiple women and men.
Scratch,
exactly.
And just like provide.
Yes, because you know what? There's something called basic human needs.
Yeah.
And basic human needs, like money isn't even one of them. It's love and connection. It's the relationships you build that are important. But we are in such a capitalistic time that, you know, the world has become so capitalistic that it's like, oh, if you don't have that house, that car, you're nothing. You're not worth anything. People attach their worth to material things.
They listen to what strangers are telling them.
And listen to what, like something that, like with no context, no background, you know, and that's the biggest trouble I would say with nowadays. There's a lot of loose information. Something I always laugh to my parents about. My parents would be like, Stephanie, do you know what I saw on Facebook? And I'm like, Mom, Dad, Facebook is not.
Don't believe anything you see on Facebook.
Yeah, I actually joke with my mom. I'm like, oh yeah, if it's on the internet, it must be true. And then I had to explain to her, I'm like, you know what? You can go onto the internet, open a page and say that the sky is actually green. And that's there. Is it true? No, but it's there on a website.
And there'll be a group that believes it.
And there will be a group that believes it for whatever reason with no like basis.
I remember at the beginning of the madness with this pandemic that there was a few friends of mine. They just said, forget it, I'm out.
Yeah.
I've tapped out of the city. They sold their house and they went rural. They went way far out and they ended up buying a property that was bigger, greater, simpler. And they still had a bunch of money left over for retirement.
So lovely.
And it was such a smart move, but none of the younger generations, anybody in their 30s, they weren't planning that. They had to be in the urban core. They had to, right?
Majority, yes. What we notice is that there's a vast difference between people that are still working, like young professionals. There's a huge shift in the thinking once they become parents.
Yeah.
It's like people before kids, like pre-kids and after kids, they have a completely different mind frame. Completely different.
But in today's digital age, why couldn't this younger generation understand that they can work remotely and anywhere in the world? Like we record shows talking to people halfway around the world. Yeah. We're communicating with people that whether we met them through DMs on social media and then we're connecting with them on the show and then we interview them. But it's just all done through an internet connection. So now you're having the conversation. So work-wise, if you're doing something that's digitally speaking, you can do this halfway around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can be in rural Canada somewhere in some small town, and then that's your home that you can afford and still have plenty left over.
Exactly,
to maintain and even probably build upon, renovate, or even buy another upsell in that town, that little town.
Exactly. And that's something that happened a lot during the pandemic.
Yeah,
a lot of our clients moved.
A lot of people, yeah.
Like even past the GTA, a lot of them. Cottages became a huge fad during the 2020, 2021. But then now that a lot of people are starting to go back to work, they're having to actually go back into the office. A lot of them are kind of like finding it difficult with the distance.
Do you get into the cottage market?
Not us personally. We'll refer out an agent because you need to know that market well.
Yeah. I thought there was like a slight max exodus going on there right now. Mass exodus. Yeah, people are just trying to sell these units now that they can't afford.
Because it was just a fad. It was something that people were doing. They thought it was cool to do that. Now we're working from home. But the issue is a lot of people are a little bit like short-sighted too. Like they don't really think ahead of what might happen. It's like you can do that, but it has to be you have to be working. It depends what you're working in, what field. Like your field has to be able to adapt to that, right? It's if you are having to go to the city or meeting clients in the city, probably shouldn't move 2 hours away. Right. So it all depends on your lifestyle, but you need to think future. You need to think a little bit ahead, I would say.
Do you think, Stephanie, that we'll see double digits interest rates?
No.
We won't touch that?
I don't even know
We're
if
close.
I don't think so. Like double digits, not sustainable.
You don't think we'll hit 10%?
I really don't see that happening. No, I don't see that happening. Also, a major reason why the interest rates went up in the first place is because inflation, right? Inflation last year was at 8%. This year, it dropped to 2.8, and then it went up a little bit recently because of gasoline, the price of gasoline. So it went up a little bit, but if you can combat inflation by that much in just a year, I think we're
I know, but all these price increases are due to a carbon tax, which is affecting everything. Right. So there's already been more rumors of bullshit talking about that carbon tax is going to get increased again. So it's a cause and effect now. So what is interest rate right now?
Right now it's the fixed. So when we talk about interest rate, I always like to do like the 5-year fixed. That we're seeing 5.5.
And variable?
Variable 6. I know that B lenders are doing 6.8. About just a bit over 6.
Just over 6.
Yes.
So if this carbon tax keeps on going up because there's no sign of an election happening this year, not next year, and that carbon tax keeps going up and people keep defaulting on leases and lines of credits and mortgages.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to say interest rate will hit double digits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not a banking person.
It's hard to know, right? Because even like people that are directly in the fields, like a lot of the mortgage people we work with were surprised. Like But
like 3 years ago, did you think you can control as many people that were controlled? Did you think that interest rates would ever go as high as what went on? Did you think that you would be paying so much for food, so much? Did we ever think in Toronto we would be, before Christmas, it's going to be a $2 liter in Toronto.
Exactly, yeah.
It's been a fact in Vancouver, right? So Vancouver's been dealing with a $2 liter for the longest time. And then tradespeople, I go back to tradespeople, it's far closer on diesel. We're almost at $1.90 averaging for diesel. So I guarantee you before the holidays, we're seeing a $2 liter.
Yes.
Here in Toronto.
Absolutely.
Which means that you got to combat this from the Bank of Canada. And so they're going to
over time, yes.
They're going to increase it.
Well, that's the thing, right? With the aggressivity of what they've increased already, I think they need to just chill a bit.
But when you've spent more money, one person, than every other leader in this country in one term, you have to somehow try to justify paying off that debt. And the only way you pay that off is by continuing doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Which leads to all this defaulting. That's what's going to happen. You're just going to, and then people are going to be forced to start from zero.
Yes, and that's the thing. But it also, people need to stick to what they can afford.
But they didn't.
That's the issue. For those that didn't stick to what they can afford and over leverage themselves, those are ones that are going to be in a little bit of trouble.
So I got a car. Sorry, I got a car at 2020. I leased because of business, right? So, and I got the interest rate at 1.9.
Yeah.
Just because I guess I am a nice guy or whatever, right? and then all of a sudden the lease is coming up, and then I spoke to my sales rep, and he's like, "Manny, don't even get rid of it. Just hang on to it."
Exactly, yes.
Because he told me what the interest rate was going to be for this year, and then he told me what the interest rate on that same car, new model, was going to be for next year, and he was saying it was going to be 10.5. I was like, "You're out to lunch, dude. There's no way that I'm ever going to agree to going from 1.9 to 10.5 to buy a new car."
But it makes sense to you, yeah.
But that's what these businesses are doing. So now they're selling. So what are they going to have? Like a surplus of all these vehicles? They're just going to be sitting there, and then they're going to have to try to sell them. That's what happens.
Yeah. Inventory goes up.
But he was also telling me that there was a waiting list for all this stuff. People were waiting for all these vehicles.
Right now?
Yeah. And I'm like, you're out to lunch, man.
I agree, because right now just it was at 8% just recently.
As contractors, we know safety is crucial at all times. But having team members not follow, or even worse, not know safety protocols is something that can cause stress and anxiety in the workplace. We face this and many other challenges daily, from calling the entire team just to make sure jobs are done in a safe manner, to updating team members one by one about training they need to complete regarding a certain tool or a new regulation, only to figure out who has or hasn't completed the training and document everything in messy folders. We deal with a lot, but Connecteam is here to help us out. Connecteam is a platform built for managers with a lot of different capabilities made to ease communications and operations, helping you get a clear and live overview of your business while giving your employees one central and simple app for work. Connecteam has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
8%.
It's insane.
So it's like,
I get what you're saying.
This more than tripled, but like in 2020, we definitely knew, like, 100%, I was like, these interest rates are going to go up. 100%.
This is a roller coaster. It's just going off the rails.
But now, but you know what? It's like I mentioned, every market is cyclical, right? So like in 2020, there was actually a halt in the market. Like I'm able to like basically give a timeline of the whole market and how things happen. So I remember when COVID hit, right? Like March of 2020, when everyone started seeing like, this thing is going to stick around a while. From April to July, nothing was happening. Our phones were not ringing. No one was transacting. Properties were sitting in the market. Like literally nothing was happening. Mm-hmm. And then first interest rate decrease came. Second one came. On the third one, market started to, because the government, they lowered the interest rates at that time to stimulate spending. Yep. And that's when it started to go crazy. And then the market was on steroids. And then they took a little bit too long to kind of like start increasing the rates. But I remember like when we, beginning of 2021, when we started seeing the market and what it was doing, we're like, no, this is not sustainable. These interest rates are going to go up for sure. But did we think they would, in a time span of 1 year go, like triple? No. I don't think anyone could have guessed that.
No, nobody knows that, but you've got people that are just feeding it.
Feeding it, of course. It depends where people want to put their focus, right? And what they really want to look at. But it's like I mentioned, this was inevitable.
Yeah.
It was inevitable.
But this is a hard place to be at. It doesn't matter if you're a first-time buyer or whatever.
It's for anyone.
Or for anyone, because now you have to figure out, I can't really sell because I'm going to lose the value. I can't really rent because I'm just going to be paying a lot of money. So then what do? You just batten down the hatches now. You have to figure out how to survive. That's all you got to do.
Absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of people have to adjust their lifestyle. So for example, even, in my household, we are 2 people and a dog. Like we don't have children yet.
What kind of dog?
A Boston Terrier.
What's his name?
Her name is Minnie Mouse.
Minnie Mouse. 2-name pet. All right. Okay.
So we started doing adjustments, right? And we were like, wow, we don't have kids, and we're finding, and we make a decent living, we make a sizable income, and we're like, did you see the price of that? Like, what, are these people crazy? And so we used to eat out a lot, and that's something we cut months ago. We do not eat at restaurants as often. Sometimes we would go to restaurants 3 to 4 times a week. Now it's once a week at most.
If I want to go out, I'll reach out to a brand, a rep, or somebody, and I'll be like, hey, you want to get together around noon?
Right? Right at lunchtime or dinner time. That's right.
Where do you want to go? I don't know. You got the expense account. You tell me. Where do you want to go?
Right? So we're going to see a lot more of that.
But those are far and few too, man. So
I know, right?
I'm like, dude,
we
what's
need more
wrong?
of these restaurant owner friends. So people are having to make adjustments to their lifestyles, and people already are. You're seeing less people do kind of like the frivolous spending. So even studies in supermarkets, not as many people are buying necessities. They're not buying the extra cookies here, the specialized cereal. No, they're just buying eggs, milk, butter, bread.
I call it food and fuel.
Right?
Like food that's just fueling you physically.
Just for survival.
And then fuel because you need to get around in your vehicle, right?
Absolutely.
It's just as simple as that.
It's as simple as that. You need to get from A to B.
I don't know anybody these days is putting Supreme in their vehicle.
No.
I do not care about Supreme.
Seriously. And even me, sometimes I'm like, do I really need to put
nope.
Supreme? I'm like,
nope. You fill it up, a little bit of detergent in there, it's all good.
That's
it's the
right.
same thing, right?
That's right.
Just how it is. No, everyone is being conscious, but the thing is...
A lot more conscious, yes.
You've got a lot of people that have overbought.
No, of course, right? And the overbuying is once again tied into keeping up with the Joneses. You know, my friend has that. So if I don't have that, I'll feel weird. And it's funny because a lot of people that transact in real estate, they'll call us, they'll be like, hey, like, you just sold my friend a property. So like, I would like to buy one too. Like and like when one family member moves, all of a sudden we know that their other family members are going to move too. It's like because as humans, we're tribal animals. We like to fit into the tribe. It's a survival thing. It's, you know, if you're different, you might not survive. You might get left out, you know? So that's the thing. It's people unfortunately compare themselves all the time, but they don't look at what's really going on. They don't see that person's books.
Are you seeing a lot of people trying to hang on to family dwellings?
Yes.
Because they see the value in it, right? Like I've got nieces and a nephew, and I'm just like, you guys the youngest is probably 20, the oldest is probably 30. And I'm like, you guys can't afford. No. There's no way.
And they know they
even
can't.
If all five of you guys pull together.
Yeah, you still can't afford it.
You still will struggle.
Yes.
That's you guys pooling together and buying a frat house and enjoying the life together as cousins, exactly right? But that's not a reality. That's not going to happen.
No, it doesn't usually work out. It's actually funny you say that because it's something I said to my niece. My niece was like, you know, came up with the conversation like, I want to move out of home. I'm 18 now. Like, I want to rent a place. And I'm like,
it's
honey, do you want me to show you? Do you want me to show you the rent prices, hon? To show you how much you have to work to pay that rent?
Did she know about the 200,000 income to disqualify? She didn't know about that.
No. So that's the thing. A lot of these younger kids, they don't know the value of money yet. And they look at us doing it. We make it look so easy, right? But
stop buying the $9 croissant.
Stop buying the $9 croissants. And that's something that now the 18-year-old niece of mine is learning. You know, when she first started working, about a year ago. She would, you know, I would see her. It was really cute because, you know, I would see her with her friends sometimes. She'd be like, oh, don't worry, I'll get you, you know, I'll buy this for you. And my younger nephew, her brother, she'd be like, oh, I'll buy you an ice cap, no problem. And then I'm just looking at her and I'm like, I was once like that too, but you're going to quickly learn that you can't be, you can't be buying things for people, covering their bill. You're going to notice that money is very fleeting.
So what's the landscape going to be like, Stephanie, like in Toronto specifically? Because I guess, has Toronto surpassed Vancouver now? Is Toronto more of a mess than Vancouver? Because remember Vancouver? Not yet. Vancouver's still a mess.
Yeah. Vancouver.
But is it a mess because of all the offshore bullshit, even though our lovely government decided to implement that new rule this year?
It's funny because a lot of people, talk about like the foreign investors and stuff, but investors, they only comprise of like 10% of the market. It's a lot of local people doing this. Investors are not as prevalent as people think.
Really, huh?
Yeah. Not as prevalent.
So for the last 2.5 years, whatever, all the locals were just bidding and competing against each other, creating this mess.
Yeah. A lot are locals. There are, of course, some, depending on the area you're in and what type of real estate you're looking at, like investors are very heavy on like the pre-con, especially from like kind of like the east side of the world, like China and places like that. They like to come here and buy properties in cash. Some of them leave the properties vacant, but once again, that's not the majority of the market. Majority of the market are people that are citizens, the residents of the city.
Am I crazy to say, or am I going to get in trouble by saying that a lot of this offshore money that's going on and buying these properties is basically just their way of laundering money in Canada?
You know, there's a lot of speculation.
It kind of makes sense when you make the rules.
We don't really know, right?
And you read it and you're like going, yeah, actually, that is technically speaking laundering money.
You know what it is? Also, it's not particularly that they're laundering money. It's money here is more secure. There's some place in the world where it's like you can own an asset and at any time that asset can be taken over.
Away.
So I think a lot of these foreign investors, they buy here because it's extremely safe. It's just very safe.
For now.
All we can compare it to is the now, right? What happens in the future is purely speculation. But, just going back to affordability, it's just that people have to adjust.
Did you recently hear that whole New York Airbnb law?
Which one?
No more Airbnbs allowed.
Oh, at all?
Well, you have to qualify for it, but they basically eliminated something like 35,000 Airbnb units. Now, if you want to rent it out as an Airbnb, you as the homeowner have to be there for the 30 days minimum that you have to rent it out. You can no longer do a single day rental.
Yeah, no, that isn't new. That's already been...
they just passed it, I mean.
Oh,
It's
because
a law now. It's passed.
yeah, and here they implemented those changes about 2 years ago. Here, yeah.
Oh, so
you
it's
can't
here
just-
too?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can't Airbnb in Toronto?
You can Airbnb, but only if you live in the property and only 180 days.
In Toronto?
Yeah.
When did they put that in place?
This was about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, a year and a half to 2 years.
What garbage.
Yeah, there's a bunch of restrictions, right? Because the hotel industry is a very strong industry, right? And all of these Airbnbs were competing with hotels.
So why didn't the taxis do that about Uber? Not a strong industry.
Not as strong of an industry. Not as strong of an industry. I guess they're not paying as many taxes, right? Hotels pay a lot of fees, taxes. Like they stimulate a lot of jobs.
I'm sure you guys look at real estate across the globe, right? I'm sure that in your downtime, you're probably just looking at. I knew somebody that was in the film business, and she's actually a real estate agent now in Portugal. And I enjoy watching her feed because she's always listing homes there. And I'm like, yeah, much better than Canada.
Yeah.
But I mean, who's actually like, where's a good place to live nowadays in today's climate?
In today's,
What country is a really good place to live in?
well, that's the thing. North America is a great place to live in, but it depends, I guess, on the city. Depends on the province, the state. Like, for example,
So please tell me which province.
like when
which
you look
city.
at the States, right? The US,
Oh,
for example.
not the U.S.
Not the US. Well, in Toronto, sorry, Canada. So when you're outside of Toronto, right, you go to like West, let's say Alberta, for example, very different house prices. Extremely different house prices.
Yeah, but I don't like
Thunder
country
Bay.
music. Eh?
You know, yeah. Then you're SOL if you don't like country music in
Exactly,
Alberta. But I would say a lot of actually cities in the GTA are very nice to live.
Really?
Yeah.
Where?
So when we're and this is purely
I know
based
that
on demographics.
Yeah, GTA.
Even
technically-
Oakville's a lovely place to live,
Oakville is more
but
expensive.
it's not affordable.
It's not.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
okay. When you say it's nice to live, it needs to be affordable too.
Well, yes, in terms of affordability, like Burlington is not bad.
I was talking about more. Burlington's getting very expensive too because they just popped up that hospital there. So as soon as you pop up a
It's actually not
hospital and
bad.
a Costco, then you're done. That's it. The prices are going to go through the roof, right?
That's so funny. But yeah, no, like the prices are reasonable for detached properties. Burlington has adjusted their prices, corrected their prices for pretty decent. And then nice places like even Peterborough is not bad. It's a nice one. A lot of nice little towns, like when we're talking about East, there's a little town I love. It's called Brooklyn, which is off of like Whitby. Very nice.
I think I've driven through it. Yeah.
Yes. So there's some nice little towns. Like there's some pockets that are overlooked, extremely overlooked. And then there's others that for no reason they're super high. Makes no sense. Ancaster's a very nice place as well. There's a lot of nice little towns in GTA. The thing about Toronto is that it changed too quickly, right? And like with a lot of immigration gentrification, things changed and
Change for the negative, in my opinion.
it's definitely not the Toronto I was born and raised in.
Nope.
It's become very different and violent too. We see some,
Yep.
weird and, things. I guess with any metropolitan city, you see that happening.
Yeah, more in bigger cities that have far more. Like, what is New York? 11 million or something like that. We're still 3 million,
Yes.
right? But
I call Toronto a mini New York. We're like mini New York. Same demeanor, same big city attitude, I find.
It's being designed just for the wealthy, though. That's the problem.
Well, yeah.
Like even New York and Brooklyn, like I can't even go to Brooklyn anymore because Brooklyn is not Brooklyn anymore. It's different.
Gentrification.
Yeah,
once
it's
again,
exactly right. So
Yeah.
I was talking more about like I like reading articles about certain Italian towns and I think Greece towns that are inviting people to come in and the government's giving tax credits and all kinds of benefits if you come in and live into this city, this town, and actually renovate a home there, then you'll get all these benefits. Why can't we get these smaller pockets outside of the GTA in these smaller towns like Brooklyn where you get the government incentivizing these people to come in and go, listen, buy a property in Brooklyn, buy a property in Brantford, buy a property there. We'll give you a huge tax benefit or tax credit or something.
Right.
like
I think that would really help to develop a lot of those little towns. And because there are some government incentives, like, even in Toronto and for first time buyers, but I just don't think they're enough.
Yeah, they're in the shape of wads of money, so then you can get ownership of a green belt. That's how it's tied in.
Right.
Those are the incentives that I don't really care for.
Right.
But I wanted like legitimate incentives about,
because it doesn't actually help.
it doesn't
like,
help
the local.
It doesn't help.
person.
Like the whole point is that you've got so many people, which we want to invite people into this country, right? You
Yes.
definitely want all these immigrants to come to these countries.
Of course.
But you don't want these immigrants to be paying $3,500 in rent.
No.
They can't afford it.
No.
And they have like families.
And a lot of people think it's the landlords being greedy, but it's not. It's all of their fees have gone up.
Yeah, everything.
Right?
So
They don't
just
have a
keeps
choice
on.
but to
There's
increase
certain
it.
like that
there,
landlord
of course,
charging
yeah,
$9,000 to kick two people out.
Yeah,
that's
that's just unfair.
ridiculous. But completely legal. He's allowed to do that ever since what was it, 2 or 3 years at the
2018.
2018 they got rid of rent control.
Yes, and so in buildings that are built after 2018.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all these towers that I talked about earlier on around Yorkdale, around Sherway, around Square One, no rent control.
No. No.
So they can charge whatever they want.
And Wes, we always tell people if you're paying rent, and you're paying a decent amount, just stay put. Like, don't try to keep hopping from rental to rental if you have a choice. Because sometimes people are like, I'm renting, but I want a bigger space, so I want to move. And it's like they're paying $2,200 a month, and then they want a whole house. Now they're looking at $4,000, and it's like you probably shouldn't do that. Like, just maybe sacrifice a little bit, stay there another year, but leave there to, home ownership. I think if you're paying $4,000 in rent, you think you should probably try to own at that point.
But you're also getting landlords that might be in a financial pickle as well, where they legitimately need to kick out the tenant because they have to move in because they can't carry their own costs.
No, yeah, and that's what's happening.
And then you're getting tenants saying, well, I'm not leaving. And then they're getting into a landlord-tenant act fight.
Yes.
Because they know that if they get kicked out, they're paying $2,200 and it's a fair rate.
Exactly,
they know they get out, they're never going to find a place for $2,200.
No.
So then they fight the system and they'll end up staying there for a year, and then that landlord doesn't even get any rent and has to fight the system to kick them out.
So
it's like it's
even just
not
get
a
their
win-win
rent
for
back.
everything.
Not for everyone.
I
That's
think-
why I got to be very cautious before kind of moving in. So like I mentioned, 2021, a lot of people were just buying condos. Like, I'm just going to buy that. I'm like, it's overpriced. It's like, yeah, but that's okay. It'll keep going up.
Joneses.
I'm like, no, it's not going to keep going up. And now I think we all know that it's because there's people that literally ask us, they're like, well, real estate just always goes up, right? I'm like, no, just like any other market, it's cyclical. It looks like this, right? It looks like this. And then there's a period like that. And then it goes like this again. Just like if you look at any chart for any market, any investment, nothing's linear, right? People think everything's linear. It's not.
What was the interest rate in 09? The bank rate was what? How high was
Hold on.
it?
Let me try to
I don't know. I don't know
remember.
off the top of my head.
I think it was 5%, 5 to 6%.
And then it got as low as what? Like a 2021, 20 or?
It got to, once again, like 2%,
2%, whatever.
Yes. There's that client that got, 0.95%. They just not even a percent.
That's why I look at history and I'm like, I could totally see double-digit interest rates happening because that's how history works.
History, yes. History, it's always important to learn history because, yes, generally best indicator of future proceedings is past proceedings, right? History always repeats itself. But it's like you mentioned, because a lot of people, when the interest rates started going up, they're like, so what? I paid interest rates of 19%. My parents paid 19%. I'm like, yeah, but that was like on 100K, 200K, like you were saying, right? I think right now, with the double digits, it's hard. It's still hard to say. Like, it's just not sustainable.
We need a collapse.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's really hard to speculate on that one, I would say. But we had a correction in 2017, and no one seems to remember that. We had a 20% correction here.
What do you mean?
In 2017.
What do you mean 20%?
So what happened was, in the end of 2016, market was doing what it does best in Toronto, like
it was still
over asking.
It was, yeah.
Multiple offers. It was that's been going on in Toronto for over a decade already, right? So what happens is with a lot of these mortgage rules, that's what people really need to pay attention to these mortgage rules, right? So 2016, when the market was going a little bit crazy, government made the mortgage rules more strict. I forget 100% what they did at the time. I think, it was the stress test. Have you ever heard of stress test?
I remember the stress test.
So people were getting low rates, but they had to qualify at a higher rate. They had to qualify. They had to be able to afford a higher rate, right? Just a bank being conservative.
But see, that's what Harper did.
Right, exactly. So
and that's why we avoided the US 08 shit.
100%. Yeah, 100%, right? Because it's like I mentioned, we've never been loose like the States with lending. We've always been conservative in comparison to other places, right? So that's why I don't foresee what happened in the States happening here, because it's like people do still have to have, down payment, jobs, and they do have to have a good situation. You can't just have nothing and buy, right? It's never been like that here. Whereas in the States, it was very much like that, right? So what happened is the stress test came in. They also made it harder on foreign investors. Like they did something with foreign investors, I remember at the time. And then there was, this was third and fourth quarter of 2017. Mm-hmm. So there was a decline. There was a correction. So people that had bought in the beginning of 2017, at that time, let's say they bought $1 million property. By like October, like September, October of that same year, it was 800K. Oh. Right. So, but then what happened was, and 2018 was kind of a flat market, kind of like not much happening. And then in 2019, it started to go up again. And then it kind of leveled off. So no one really talks about it because it was a correction that was corrected later as it started to go up. But there's a lot of people, if they were transacting during that time, they remember it very clearly.
I'm going back to construction and retail. So once you start seeing construction turn and retail take a hit, mm-hmm. cars stop being sold, which is the first indication. Then homes stop being sold, yes. or homes start being taken.
Or just longer on the market, right?
Longer on the market, but also being taken by banks or what have you, lending rates, right? Yeah. So, and then you've got like stupid B lenders going into the teens now and all kinds of shit trying to save people. Yeah. Right? Because they're just taking advantage of the situation. That's all it is.
That's to gain market share, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just how it works, right? So when you've got all these things happening, you got tradespeople that are not going to be working. They're not going to be making the money that they used to be making, and they're going to try to survive. So then they're going to lower their price point to just survive at that point. And so how much longer can we survive this? It's going to be like, I think you're right. It's going to be like 5 years of surviving this before we start seeing any kind of light. Yeah. Right. And so that's where, but in that 5-year period, there's going to be major losses across the board.
Yes. For people that really don't do their due diligence or that are buying things they can't afford, especially with high limit credit cards, sometimes people just go and, they spend more than they actually make. It's super important to have a balance sheet. It's important for you to have a budget, a personal budget. I remember me, I started working real estate so young, and, when you start making money, it's like you think, you're like, oh, I make all this money. No, you don't. You don't make as much as you think. There's the Scotiabank slogan, you're richer than you think. No, it's you're broker than you think. And you should probably tone down the spending a bit, right? Because even for me, sometimes people look at me, they're like, oh, you're a real estate agent. So you just have a tree in your backyard, you pull out money. It's like, no, I'm actually very cheap with my spending. Like I'm very cautious about everything. Yes, because I know how hard it is to make money. Businesses are hard and you have so many expenses. Don't think that because you're making a sizable income that you can just spend. Like even people that are multimillionaires have to budget. Money is very fleeting. Money isn't what people really think it is, right? So people just have to be like, okay, this is my income. This is what I pay in taxes. So deduct it. So taxes you got to pay. You got to pay them. You can't run from them. So deduct that, see how much you have net, and then see, your housing shouldn't be more than like 30 to 40% of that net, what you net. And then your car should be this portion, like I wanted a particular car. Only now I got it last year. And I have been hustling in real estate for 17 years. And only now I'm starting to kind of get where I want to be, right? And
but you're not the majority.
And I'm not the majority. No, I'm definitely not the majority, but I had to learn the hard way. So, I was making like pretty decent money at a young age, and I wouldn't budget. I wouldn't make a balance sheet. I could care less. I'm like, just spend it. I want it. I'll just work more. I'll just make another check. And then I would see that every year I was like in debt for like 4 years. It took me 4 years to get out of debt. But once I got out of it, I'm like, never again. Because honestly, debt is a slow killer. It kills you slowly. So it's like, what I learned is, hey, just because it's in the bank account doesn't mean I need to spend it. Just let it sit there pretty. Just let it sit there. There's always going to be something to spend money on. Don't worry. So it's just budgeting. Budgeting is going to be very crucial.
Well, I think that's what's going to learn. Everyone's going to learn this while they're hovering over the can of fire while to stay warm, right? It's just they're going to realize like the The other thing that I had with this whole generation of overspending is they've never had it hard.
They've never had it hard. Yeah.
Never, ever had it hard.
It's so funny because I was talking to my partner about this actually just this morning. We're like, you know what? There's in the past, in history, there have been so many revolutions, like the Industrial Revolution, this revolution, freedom. There's people that had to fight for basic rights. They, like so many revolutions in order to just have this world. We didn't have to fight for anything. Everything that we have today, we should be extremely grateful for. Yep. It came at the cost of a lot of people. Right? But because we are handed it, we think that we deserve it or that we're entitled to it. No, we're not. Like nobody owes us anything. You better go out and you better hustle and make sure that you're okay because it's nobody else's job but yours. Right? And it's
true.
It's just the mentality. We're just very entitled. Like even at times I'm just like, oh, like this is so difficult. I can't, like the seller is so, just lower the price. Your house isn't worth that. Or I'm just like, oh my God, like this. And I'm just like, calm down. Like this is not like
this is how they're performing.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where I have to check myself, right? Sometimes I want an answer so quick. I'm like, oh my God, the person just won't answer. It's like, and like I noticed that at times I'm so impatient. So I just have to be like, calm down, have patience. You're gonna get the answer. Like patience really is a virtue. I'll tell you that much. And it saves you from a lot of issues like overspending.
Thanks, Stephanie. I just got the 12 questions to do.
Yes.
Thanks so much. I think we've covered quite a bit.
Yes.
Anybody wants to send hand mail? Send it to me, man. I don't care. I won't read it. So I never read it. I don't give a shit.
There's no time, right? You have to work to survive.
It won't hurt my feelings because I have to have them to begin with. So Stephanie De Souza, Stephanie De Souza and Associates, www.stephaniedesouza.com, and the phone number is 647-330-5279, and her email is stephanie@stephaniedesouza.com, and on IG it's Stephanie De Souza Realtor with 2 R's, and then also on Facebook, your name, Stephanie De Souza.
Yes.
What everyday sound brings you joy and comfort?
TV background noise.
What's your favorite beverage?
Diet Coke. It's an addiction.
I have a story about Coke.
Oh, really? Oh, that must be interesting.
Back in my day, my high school days, I used to paint murals.
Okay.
Right? So we were doing a job and we were running late because you're only allowed in high schools at certain times. We'd always do work either on long weekends or March break or summers and stuff like that, right? So we were running late, and then all of a sudden we were just working round the clock, literally 24 hours just painting, and it was just like all kinds of shit. So we had lunch, and Cokes came with the lunch, right? I'm a teenager. So all of a sudden I dropped a penny in one of the Cokes.
Oh, exactly. I see where this is going.
Exactly, right? So all of a sudden, I didn't finish the Coke because I was like, it's a penny. I don't want to finish it, right? The next day came in, and then I went to grab it because I wanted to hear it, and it wasn't there anymore. And I asked everybody, did you guys like pour this out?
In one day?
Yeah, one day.
And we put that in our stomachs,
Yeah, I don't touch any soft drinks except for San Pellegrino. That's the only thing I drink.
Oh, so. I love San Pellegrino.
What's your least favorite tool?
A ratchet.
Why?
I hate using ratchet. It's like you're trying to like turn this one way and you're having to like go around, and it's just so confusing for me. I'm like, that's disturbing.
The thumb dictates the
There you go.
The driving direction.
I guess I'm the issue because I'll be there. I'll put it on the,
it's designed,
and I'll be like this, like
it's designed to hold, and the thumb swings right, like okay.
It's like I hate it. I hate that tool.
What turns you on creatively?
Design.
Any kind of design?
Yes, like I love design. Like I could never live in a room without color. Like I love this. I love the patterns,
so all the homes
the
that you see, all the Chantilly lace, you love all that Chantilly lace?
I love it. I love design, and I love like non-conventional design, and I love, just going outside of the box when it comes to design.
How many shaker kitchens have you seen?
Shaker kitchens? Yeah. Not many.
What do you mean?
Like
shaker style kitchen.
Like what do you mean by shaker style?
Cabinetry, the doors.
Oh,
white.
So many, like white, generally white or brown, I would say.
For the bold, huh? The brown people.
Yeah. But most people, I think, like white.
No, crap, I know. If you listen to the show, I can't stand shaker. It's right up there with a glass block.
Oh, really? Okay. Well.
What word or concept do you find overused these days?
Live, love, laugh. No one really knows what it is to really live.
To life. Do any of those three things.
Yeah.
What's your favorite curse word?
Filho da puta.
Of course it is.
I love that one.
What's your favorite vehicle in the entire world?
The Ferrari Portofino convertible. So cute.
Tan leathered?
Always.
Red?
Red, all the way.
What do you miss about childhood?
The simplicity of things. I was less jaded, I would say.
100%.
Right?
What term or phrase resonates with the core of who you are?
Yes, this one is, it really does resonate with who I am today. It's say what you want, do what you want, because those that matter won't mind, and those that mind will not matter.
If you could master a skill outside of your own expertise, what would it be?
I would say veterinary skills, so caring for animals, or private investigative services.
But animals get sick and animals leave.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
Mm-hmm. Trust me, I prefer animals over humans.
I always say that.
I always prefer an animal over
Same.
a human. I don't care how many nice humans there are out
Same.
there. There's far more nice animals.
Yes, and they are very genuine, and they will never bite the hand that feeds them, unlike humans.
I've been bit on my ass. I've been bit on my arm, but I still care about them. If you could speak to a historical figure, who would it be, and what would you ask?
Jesus.
And?
I'd speak to Jesus. I would ask him if it was, if it was all worth it, if humanity is worth it. That's what I would ask him.
That's a good question. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
I would say, I would like to hear, finally you have arrived. Now you get to rest.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it and love your production.
Thank you. The whole 6 degrees and did Giovanni tell you how I met him?
No.
Toronto Pizza.
Really? No better way to meet.
That's how I met him. I met him there. I was getting a pie and we got talking. And then he was like, I do a podcast. And I'm like, well, I do a podcast.
Well, there you go.
And then I showed him mine. He's like, oh, okay. All right. And I was, come on the show. Let's start talking.
Yeah, he said great things. And I loved his interview. It was very nice.
Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So everyone check her out. It's Stephanie De Souza, Stephanie De Souza and Associates. And its website again is stephaniedesouza.com. And the phone number is 647-330-5279. Her email is stephanie@stephaniedesouza.com, and also on IG, it's Stephanie De Souza Realtor with 2 R's and Stephanie De Souza on Facebook. That's it.
And reach out to us for the best time to buy, best time to sell, and best time to do nothing. Reach out, and we'll definitely advise you.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
We're out of here, Angelina.